social, mental, even in external relations of countries, etc. So the objective of my talk is actually to understand how mathematics help us to analyze and predict such outbreaks of infectious diseases, and and how to gain familiarities with the concept in the news about pandemic. That is R naught. I will explain the R naught. I mean how to flatten the curve. Flatten the curve means that how we can control the pandemic. And the third objective is how one can use various models to design public health policies. So I'm not going to talk in a rigorous way regarding the mathematical in some particular model, because actually due to the time limitations. So I will try to give the gist of what a mathematical modeling of infectious disease is, how it is applied, and how it works. So basically, the goal is why we do mathematical modeling. So to understand the competing risk of death from the diseases. So as we are witnessing that there are so many deaths, even in India, more than 50,000 deaths are there due to the COVID-19. So one of the great challenges is how to control that, how to attempt how to limit the extent of infections, how to control that using various control strategies. Right now, since we don't have any specific drugs available, and also we don't have any vaccines, so what we are having is only the what we call non-pharmaceutical interventions like quarantine, isolation, social distancing, hand hygiene, etc. So these are the due to that, our mathematical model helps us. Another reason is that data and resources are limited. So this is because also we don't have much time to do experiment, and also the experiment on human is sometimes unethical. So in that case, the mathematical model and its simulations gives us the result related to the various combinations of control and intervention strategies. So this is a typical layout of what a mathematical modeling, analysis, and simulation is. So whenever we have a real system, so our attempt is to study some aspects of real system, and depending on the objective, we make a model, and that becomes our model system. Now, when we have a model systems, so we construct approximate theories, because no model is perfect. Model are always in some sense, the copy of the real system, and that is the approximation of real system. We perform simulations on our models, and we get simulation results. Similarly, we get theoretical predictions. We compare the theoretical predictions with the simulation results, and we compare the results obtaining the simulations and theoretical results of the real situations, and if needed, we further improve the model. Similarly, another aspects of doing the things is direct experiment. That is, when we have a real system, perform the direct experiment, get some experimental results, and then compare the experimental results and use the model. So this is what typical laboratory persons or biologists do, and this is what this is actually the theoretical study, and it's the corresponding simulation of the model. So what is the mathematical model? Simply, so mathematical model terms of a system that actually helps us to assess the calculation predicts. In case of infectious disease model, this is a set of equations describing transmission of the infectious disease in the given populations, and with the help of this model, we attempt to capture the key process, ignoring uncertain details. So these are the few basic history of how the mathematical models have been emerged. The history goes back to 1760. The Bernoulli, actually, he first formulated and solved a model for smallpox. Similarly, in 1906, Hammer proposed and analyzed a discrete model. And Sir Ronald Ross, who got Nobel Prize for in medicine, he also developed a differential equation model for malaria as a host vector. Sir Carmack and McKendrick, 1926. So these are the historical models, and after that there are in terms of the COVID-19, then also there are lots of number of mathematical model. I will cover all those portions later on. So what is actually this mathematical model is turn logic into questions. So how we do that? So let us see. So what we have some mathematical logics, and that logics are converted in the form of equations, and just after solving the equations we get some predictions. So there are various types of quantitative models depending on various types of mathematics used. For example, the linear algebra and matrix model, differential equation model, difference equation model, game theory model, network model, cellular automata model, agent-based model, and statistical models, etc. So the basic idea is what models is suitable for in which situations, that depends on both the intrinsic property of the your disease which you are modeling, and also the objective of your purpose of your modeling. So depending on that, we use different type of models. So here the purpose is to understand transmission dynamics, to assess various control strategies like school closure, lockdown, travel restrictions, etc. What will be the impact of this dynamics? Actually, to also predict future course. As the next 1 month, what is going to be happen with the total cases number of cases. These are some typical just use of mathematical model to understand the outbreaks in measles. This is a paper published in 2016. These are the data-wise reported cases and their corresponding modeling. Similarly, in 1918, we have Spanish flu, and that was also one of the great pandemic of the history, and so on. So we will go further on it. So how we do model actually? So one of the model that goes to the Kermack-McHenry model. This is very old model, 1927. So it's this much of simple. The system of three ordinary differential equations with the dependent variable S, I, and R. What is S? S is just the susceptible population. So what is the mean by susceptible population? So the whole human population is actually subclassified or subdivided into three exclusive classes. One is susceptible, that is healthy populations. Infected one population is actually those populations who have got the infection. So for example, COVID-19 infection. And recovered population is the populations who have been recovered after the infection. So there's just three. So now see the beauty of this very old models actually, and how it is still very useful, because this type of model is still being used for evaluating various different assessment and estimating the control strategies. So here we see that just for a short durations, so due to the interaction of S and I, so when we have interaction of S and I, so that is when healthy person get in contact with the infected persons, so the infection is actually is transferred as pathogen is transferred to the susceptible persons, and that becomes infections. So this lambda is basically the rate of transmission. How to estimate this lambda? That is again one of the very critical work in the modeling of infectious disease dynamics. It depends on so many things like number of susceptibles, infectives, also the socio-cultural of the populations, like how they interact with each other, their density in particular region, and so on. This this is the rate at which the healthy persons are getting infection, and so this healthy persons goes to the infected class, and this gamma is actually the recovery rate. As fortunately the total death rate in the COVID-19 case is less than 2%. So this so the recovery rate is very high. So gamma this gamma is actually the recovery rate, and so this is a simple example of this is an epidemic model. Here we have some assumptions that the population is homogeneous, they are mixing homogeneously, and also they are differentiable. So these are some restrictions or some assumptions we are making. After we have assumed these assumptions, we can use advanced mathematical techniques to analyze these models and can forecast regarding the regarding the disease. So one another important parameter, that is biological threshold, is the reproduction number. You have heard about this. What normally it is called R naught. So what is R naught? Actually, R naught is the number of secondary cases an infection person generates. Suppose one person get infection, and in whole duration of his infectiousness, so how on an average how many persons he infects if the whole population is healthy. So that average number is called actually the basic reproduction number, and this is very important biological threshold, because if its value is say greater than 1, then the disease will spread, and if its value is less than 1, then ultimately the disease will be controlled. So here how this basic reproduction number depends. It depends on so many in the model. So in particular, it depends on the number of contacts, probability of transmission. That means if suppose X person is meets Y persons, then what is the probability that if X is infected, then Y also will be infected. So that is called the probability of transmission. Similarly, duration of infectiousness, more the duration of the more the chances that he will infect larger number of populations. So proportion of contacts that are susceptible, that is the available. If all are infected, then an infectious person can get no one to infect further. So these are actually the certain things which affects the basic reproduction number. So for this simple particular Kermat-McKendrick models, so this R naught can be calculated like this: C into P into D into S. So here in this case it is very simple. In a complex model, the expression will also be complex, but ultimately the important thing is that if R naught is less than 1, so that means on an average one person is producing less than 1 infections in his then definitely the number of infection in each generation will decrease, and at the end the disease will die out from the populations. But if the basic reproduction number R naught is greater than 1, then on an average one person will infect more than one person, so the number of cases will increase and the disease will persist in the population. So this quantity or estimation of basic reproduction number is also important. But in the definition, it is said that this basic reproduction number R naught is defined as the average number of secondary infections cases resulting from the introduction of a single infection case into totality of susceptible population. The problem are actually, so this is calculated when one infectious person is exposed in a complete healthy population. But what happens in reality that once the infections comes in the community, then the number of susceptible persons actually that is not completely, but there are so many infectious persons. So in that situations we need what we call the net reproduction number or effective reproduction number. Before that, let us use the some terms related to the pathogenesis of some pathogen. So whenever we have some infections disease, so there are certain biological parameters or definitions we need to understand. So this is actually, suppose this is the time scale, and then what we have here. So this is the time of infection. Suppose one person gets infection at this time, then so this is, you can say, the virus load or kind of thing. So when there are certain times, that is what we call exposed or latent period. So this latent period is actually the durations by which the person is not infectious, means one will not infect others, but after a certain time, that is he becomes infectious. So this latent or the period is one of the very important factor. Another is incubation period. So what is incubation period? So this is the durations between the time of onset of infection, that is time of infections, to the symptom development. So in the case of COVID-19, as you might have heard, that the incubation period is actually very large, ranging from 1 day to 14 days. That means even in some cases the persons are not having any symptoms up to 14 days. So that is actually the one of the reasons. That's why we have so many asymptomatic cases. That means the cases, they are infectious, but they don't have any symptoms, so they are asymptomatic. And since they don't know that unless they are diagnosed with the COVID-19 test that they are infectives, so they are just moving here around just like healthy persons and contributing very largely in the infection of the COVID-19. So this incubation period is one of the so this is the recovery time and immune response. So that is actually the various things. So this is what I have talked about the SIR model. This is the simplest model. This is the typical differential equations. And so this is our mathematical models. What do we mean by simulations, or how it is actually beneficial as compared to the real experiment? So if we understand this, then actually, so look at here. So this is just a simple 3 ordinary differential equations. And if we estimate the parameters, that is the beta and the gamma, that beta is actually the rate of infections, gamma is the recovery rate. Here we have not incorporated the death rate. This is the Kermack-McKendrick model. So depending on different values of beta, if the different rate of contacts will be there, we can get assess what will be the number of infectives, what will be the number of recovered cases with respect to the time. For example, without any interventions, the rate of beta, that is the contact rate, will be different. But when there is a lockdown, the contact rate will be reduced. So that is actually the situation. Similarly, the recovery rate, the gamma also affects, that depends on the available medical health facilities, and also how quickly they are responding. So these are the, so there are different values of gamma and beta for different reasons, and so if you do real experiment, then you can get only one value of beta and one value of gamma and one scenario. But with the help of mathematical modeling, you can take various values of beta and gamma. So this is just the simulation of these differential equations. So what do you mean by simulation? That means just taking some suitable values of parameter. So we have solved this numerical ordinary differential equations numerically. So this is the number of cases, and this is the time, and in terms of beta and gamma. So we can see it's as this blue is curve is actually the susceptible. So initially it is decreasing, number of recovered is increasing, and the rate of infective persons are initially increasing and then decreasing. So these are the what we call simulations. So situation here in this case, the total infections is again going to 0. So initially this is non-zero and then going to 0 after getting the infection piece. So like this. So when for different values of beta and gamma, you see. So as we see that if the contact and recovery rate are different, then the situations will be different. So this is the basic reproduction numbers we have. Now want to know regarding the net reproduction number. What is the net reproduction number? So the net reproduction number is basically, net reproduction number is the average number of secondary infections resulting in a given population. In case of healthy populations, now this is realistic. So what relationship in general? So the net reproduction number, what we call Rn, is equal to Rn or not time, that is basic reproduction number, S by N. What is S? The healthy populations, N is the total population. So this is the ratio or fraction of healthy populations. So when we multiply these fractions with R naught, so we get the net reproduction number. So definitely we see that net reproduction number is less than R naught, because N is always greater than or equal to S. So with the help of this refracted number, again the number of infections will increase if R naught is greater than 1 and decrease if R naught is less than 1. But now in this case R naught is not constant, it changes with respect to time. So this is for R naught equal to 2. Okay. So another important aspect is the herd immunity. What is actually the herd immunity? Herd immunity is if suppose we have vaccine, as we know that Russia is claiming that they have developed the vaccines, and there are so many companies they are working on the vaccines for COVID-19. So if suppose there is availability of vaccine, so the minimum fraction of populations that will be needed to vaccinate in order to eradicate the disease from the populations. So that expression is again, that ratio can also be calculated in terms of the basic reproduction numbers, and it is given like this: 1 minus 1 upon R naught. So we estimate R naught, so we can estimate the proportion of populations that is required to vaccinate in order to control the disease through vaccination. So then the populations or the community will have herd immunity. These are the typical well-do of the threshold herd immunity. For example, so malaria, the 99%, actually the vaccine for malaria is not very successful. Measles, 90 to 95%, this is the immunity threshold. Like in case of say polio, 82 to 87% of the population that is needs to be vaccinated in order to completely eradicate the polio in a long run. So these are actually the herd immunity. The typical values of R naught, that is the basic reproduction number for various disease past pandemic. These are the, for example, measles ranges in between 12 to 18, like this. For polio, it is 5 to 7. For SARS, that is actually out that occurred in 2002-3, that is to 5, and so on. So the higher value of R naught, the higher the rate of infection, that is actually highly infectious. So what is the now our objective? So one purpose is actually to estimate the R naught. Once we estimate the R naught, so we know that what will be the course of what will be the future course of actions for the infectious disease. Now, as a policy point of view, one of the objective is to flatten the curve. Just to see the curve. So this the red one is actually the outbreak without any interventions, like no lockdown kind of things. But if we apply some interventions, then the curve will be like this. So that means with respect to the time, so the so the rate of infections that will be reduced, and the time of the that will also reduce. So for what it happened in the case of say in India also. So at this earlier we have a lockdown, so instead of going like this, so now it is like this. So what is the benefit actually? Sometimes although we are not the purpose is that just because using lockdown we cannot control the disease, but still that is beneficial in the sense that suppose if the level is like this, then we might have the sufficient level of healthcare facilities available to treat the patients. But if it is suddenly outburst, that is the number of infections is very large, then our health infrastructures may not be sufficient to handle the situations. So that is also one of the purpose and objective of this. If we talk in terms of the literature of modeling of COVID-19, so there are approximately 8,000 technical reports that is in med archives or bioarchives. And so modeling is a comprehensive analytic and computational talk. So it's highly relied on the study objective. Depending on different objective of the study, the same system can be modeled in a different way. It needs support of good data, required insights and experience from similar occasions, and demands power of computing facilities and data analytics, require validation and disseminations. So there are, before understanding the Indian scenario, so there are certain open questions we need to understand. That is how we would researchers. So the open question one is actually how would researcher assess both timing and strength of the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic? Although it is said, okay, is the second wave worse than the first wave? What does it mean by second wave? Basically, second wave means initially the curve is like this, infection is increasing, and when it reaches to that peak, then it gradually try to decrease. But what happens when the level of infection decreases? Then again, the people change their behavior sometimes, and they just start mixing more rapidly, and then again there might be some more infections, peak kind of things. So that is actually what we call the second wave, third wave, and so on. So the answer to these questions need a relatively accurate long-term predictions of the infections dynamics. And not only that, we have to also keep an eagle eyes on the current scenario. For example, say in various phases in various states in India, we have various types of lockdowns, even in say West Bengal and some other, I mean Maharashtra and other highly infectious states. So the strategy is a different, and so we have to keep in mind if there is a lockdown, then what will be the effectiveness, if there is sufficient medical facilities. So we have to keep all this into considerations while modeling. So among so many different statistical models being able to predict future spreading patterns, we need to identify few ones are their combinations that are particularly useful to make long-term predictions. So can we do it? And if we can, then how? So that is the questions. The second question is, how could government monitor the likelihood of recurring surge of COVID-19 caused by business reopening? As now we are in the unlock 3 phases in India. So various business and even the educational institutes are being opened for conducting examination, etc. So the question is, what will be the impact of all this into the outbreaks or in the future course of actions of the COVID-19? Does the social distancing measure help reduce a potentially rising risk? And if it risks, then we have to quantify it actually. If the unless we are able to quantify that, then we cannot properly estimate the future outbreaks. So answer to these questions required adequate data. That is one of the big problem in India or even in undeveloped countries, because of the there is no proper mechanism of collecting or gathering the data. So that may not be easily collected by routine public health surveillance approaches, and even sometimes it is insufficient because we don't have a clear vision that what type of data one should collect. So we may work with the practitioners to develop good sampling instruments and schemes for community risk surveillance. Is open question 3 is face masks protective? If so, how to assess the compliance of face mask wearing? So this to answer these questions, we require the causal effect analysis of face mask wearing on disease progressions, and that are very challenging. Is there evidence that the contagion and the fatality of the coronavirus over time, and in some region due to the increasing recovery rate of virus carriers and decreasing rate of case fatalities? So again, answer to these questions pertains to multidimensional competing risk models and hotspot analysis. As we have known that when there are large number of infectives, and that area is actually containment declared as cantonment zone, or what we call hotspots. So there is a separate need of analysis to. So the things are now not homogeneous. We cannot consider all the regions similar. So we have to separate the hotspots as compared to the other regions. We have to work out some thoughtful and convincing method and solutions to the public. Okay, sorry. Okay, so these are the open questions. And so there are 4 challenges. Actually, the first challenge is we don't have relevant good quality of data. So our public surveillance data is not very good. Many biased in surveillance data, cell phone data, mobile data, viral testing data, serological testing data, symptom data, medical treatment data, as well as other demographic. So when we have a rich collection of data, and that also the valid data, then only our models will be better to predict the future course of action. So that is one of the difficulty in estimating the disease outbreak, especially in developed and undeveloped country. So the second challenge is we don't have good model for infectious diseases. Multi-compartment models are so far most useful in predictions. So as I told that so other good models are available, and to answer different types of questions. So not a single model can answer all the questions. We need all varieties of model, hybrid models to answer the questions. The challenge 3 is we don't have much time to develop and test new ideas, method, and software. That is one of the great challenge, because if suppose we have only 2 to 4 weeks to develop and test ideas, otherwise that method will be old, or that may be out of date. So we don't have good preparations in terms of theory, methods, computing, and researches in these fields. So especially in case of India, so we have various types of subject boundaries. Some persons who is studying mathematics and computer science, they don't have any idea of say biology or that kind of thing. So as in the case of say new education policy, hopefully in future such type of interdisciplinary research will be also more effectively and enhanced in India. So new softwares, packages of new methods which are also lacking. There are so many new startups. They are actually they have started preparing softwares, and also there are very ready-made softwares also. And the fourth challenge is we don't have adequate resources in terms of funding, data, research teams, computing softwares, and publications. So these are the few challenges in the modeling of in fact COVID-19. Now I want to discuss some case studies related to the say India, and what are the different based on some mathematical models. So for that, I need to share another slide. There's a technical difficulty. Actually, second slide is not displayed on the sharing screen. Is my screen visible? Hello?
No, sir, now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So how much time I have? I think, okay.
So 10 minutes.
Okay, so just I will show I will show you the one of the case study actually for the modeling of COVID-19 outbreak in India, and this is actually the research work done by the group of researchers Debashil Rai, Rupam Bhattacharya, Maxwell Salvator, and Brahma Mukherjee, and okay, so so the purpose of this is actually the pre-lockdown forecasting, post-lockdown analysis, and from numerical forecasting to strategic visions. So when this work was started, so this is actually the cases with the date on the so x-axis is the time starting from January 10 to say March 19. Red indicates the death, this green is recovered, and yellow is the total number of cases. So on this date, that is March 12, so WHO declared the COVID-19 as a pandemic. So the distribution of COVID-19 related risk factors, so there are so many risk factors, as we know that for the populations over the age of greater than 65, so the immunity is low, so the risk factor that is high for those. So similarly, hypertension in men, women, populations with asthma, diabetes, and also etc. So these are the numbers in millions, depending on the various research study. So why we are noting this, because this population, say for example, the old age senior citizens, the outbreak in senior citizens, that will be totally different from that of the young one. So this is the pre-lockdown forecasting without any interventions. So again, here of three countries, this is a comparative study of three countries: India, US, and Italy. India in the red one, and also this dashed one is actually the upper limit, especially Okay, so forecast March 16. So we can see the situations. It is at the end of May 15. It is forecasted about 8 lakh 87 kind of things. So time this was one of the on March 24 one of the media coverage that India may have 97,000 to 1.3 million COVID-19 infections. On March 25 we have the historic 21 days lockdown. So the what are the effects of lockdown? So actually to ramp up testing, disease surveillance, contact networking tracing, prepare healthcare infrastructure, optimally deploy resource based on emerging hotspots, stop the virus, the pause and then revive the economy, keep the essential supply chain going and support the vulnerable, need long-term strategy instead of discrete short-term tactics. So these were actually the purpose for the imposing lockdown. So how many cases do we expect to see post lockdown? When we can expect to see a decline in fatalities? What does a successful lockdown? How should we return to normalcy from lockdown? Just I would since time is the so this is the Italy's case. So here again, the green one is the recovered one, yellow is the cases, and red one is the deaths. So they have successfully, by the end of the July, up to certain extent, ruled the. This is the India's case up to 25th July. So this is a we have not reached the. So for costing models in Indian specific, this is ICMR, Cambridge Armed Forces, Shauris Dash, CMI, US State University, and Indus CI, SIM. These are actually the one of a few major modelers. They are modeling for Indian COVID-19 cases. Again, these are the actually susceptible infected kind of things, and since there are this infections classes, actually there are asymptomatic cases, mild cases, and so on. So depending on the different pathogenesis of the COVID-19, so different models have been designed. So this is one of the models. So this is a latent Markov process models. Actually, this is a stochastic models. So here SIR models, quarantine, and kind of things. So this is published in 2020 Wang et al. Monte-Carlo simulations. So what is the modeling interventions when we have susceptible infections and removed class? So here we are imposing some PITs. So this is actually the intervention. So the rate of contact is simply beta. So instead of we are now imposing PIT, so we are reducing this rate of contact so that the disease will be less. Okay. As I told, the R naught is a very important factor. So as of 14th April 2020, so this is the fourth scenario for amplified R naught for COVID-19. And with the this is a cautious return, so at a different level. So this yellow one is actually with the social distancing and the travel ban. So as we know that what is required is R naught must, if it is less than 1, then that is disease will be can be controlled. So here we see that up to July 15th, all the values of R naught that is for different values, and so that is above the value 1. So this is a short-term forecasting. So this red one is without no interventions, and this is with the social distancing, and this is the moderate actually return. So that is a different forecast as of on May 1, and this is the cumulative number of cases, that is the total cases. So here we can see that is up to May 1, it had been estimated to 1 lakh. Okay. This is the long-term projections and forecasting scenario. So here, this is actually the date that is the 15th May, and after 1 month, that is 15th June, and then 15th July. So here on the y-axis, we have number of new cases, 1 lakhs people in India, and so for different control strategies we can see. So this yellow one is with the social distancing and travel ban. So this is the normal, so pre-intervention without any interventions. This is the moderate return, and this is the cautious return. So how we are actually getting all these things is because we know that if the people follow social distancing interval band, so the rate of contacts that has been estimated, if they are following this social distancing interval band, then what will be the reduced rate of infections and so on. So just after estimating those parameters, that those parameters are fitted to the models, and with the help of the models, these predictions are made, and then accordingly the policies are decided. So this is the with various lockdown scenario. If there is a 21-day lockdown, then this is actually the total number of cases. If it is 28-day lockdown, then it will be low. If it is 42 days lockdown, further low, and 56-day lockdown. So this is actually the different scenario. So here, if we can see that 56-day lockdown on 15th this July. So this the relative reduction is 61%. So this is the actually without okay. So that is actually the benefit of lockdown that can be estimated through the. So since the parameters are not very accurate, and due to this under-reporting and so many things, so therefore the value of or not transmission rate, recovery rate, these are very crucial, and we don't have a single value, but instead of that we have some interval estimate for that. And due to the various sensitivity, we have under-reporting, because one of the main reason for under-reporting is actually the lack of testing, and the second one is the asymptomatic cases. So due to these two reasons, the observed cases basically that is less than the actually so we have so the sources for all this data is actually the COVID-19.org, and where is India now. So as of this report was generated, so times cases was 5,27,273 cases as on today. So the total number of confirmed cases is 27,600,450. Out of that, 51,955 people have died due to the COVID-19 related complications. 19 lakhs have been recovered. So this is actually the different scenario with respect to the different countries. Here in green, this is the curve for India. So as we can see that there are certain curves actually which is below the India. This is the South Korea and Bangladesh, etc. Especially South Korea, they have worked well to cope up with this pandemic. But as far as the Pakistan's data is concerned, sometimes that is actually debatable regarding the authenticity. So this is actually state-wise different situations up to August. This is the effective reproduction number, time varying R for COVID-19. That net reproductive. This is the state data. Doubling time. So the doubling time for different states. Daily number of total cases. Daily. Summary. So positive rate and so on. So as of predictions for different states as on July 28th, these were the predictions. So sometimes instead of using the actual data, some proxy data is also used to calculate the for future course of actions. So this is a public health has a serious role in this has a serious role in public health policy making, and the public also have its role is also very crucial. So community participation will be necessary and the key. We need to manage risk in our daily lives. So these are the some results. Use data to estimate need, deploy resources, how many beds, PPE kits, ICUs, beds, ventilators are needed, and where. So this can be estimated with the help of modeling data. As we can see, the Dharai Mumbai, it is one of the big largest slum in the world, and there were some positive cases, but they have successfully able to continue. These are just the glimpses of more models where we have susceptible exposure. Now the healthy persons are actually classified as severe, mild, or not asymptomatic. There is not symptoms. Out of this also, some are tested, some are not tested, and some are hospitalized, and so on. So this is depending on the complexity of the model, so the number of parameters will increase. If we are able to properly estimate the parameters, then our model will answer in a correct way. So thank you for your patience, and please stay sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable session. As everyone is suffering with this pandemic and its consequences, and your session, it's really very wonderful for us. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
it. And now I would like to